Janis, you're currently living a self-sufficient lifestyle after a major health event that drastically changed your life. So tell me more about what happened and how you dealt with it.
Well, I think I was very lucky, for one thing, because I did have a whole series of major things happen that totally disrupted my life around in my early 50s. And that's quite a good time to have a reset. So a lot of people don't have that. But in my case, I think that was useful. And my reset, of course, was a serious health situation, and which of course led into a serious financial situation. At the age you don't need a financial problem, and I learned heaps from that, and we virtually totally changed our lives as a result of that. And so I'm very grateful for all that in retrospect. And that's all part of what I talk about now in terms of, your past and your experiences inform your future and give you clues as to where you need to go in your future. And so what it did for us really was, because it's not just for me, it was for my partner too, it jogged us out of a sense of security and normality. And so we had to find a different way. And we have, and it's great. And now I think it's really important. It's very difficult for people who don't have a major shift in their lives to be going along in a nice, easy way. And then they come to retirement, and then, oh my God, it's a really major and difficult transition. Even if it's, I'm just going to retire and play golf. I mean, that in itself is a really hard transition when you've been working. So I think in a way it's an advantage to have a lot of disruption in your 50s or your 40s or your 60s. And the secret, I think, is to make the most use of it. And so what we're trying to do is be the change we want to see in society. So we're thinking this is an extraordinary time in history where we have an aging population, where we're living longer than we ever did, but there's more heart disease, there's more problems in terms of supporting older people. And then you're hit with pandemics, climate change. This is not an easy period to go through compared to the previous 50 years we've had in our society. So it's going to be difficult for a lot of people. And I think what we want to do is do what we believe is helpful for everybody, our families, ourselves, society, and what will help us through this period of difficulty with the aging population. And so all of the things I've learned throughout my whole career have come together in what I'm doing now, which is a bizarre, but that happens with, I think should happen with most people. That's what wisdom is. It's bringing together everything you've got and saying, this is now my direction. How do I apply that? And what have I got that I can contribute?
So it's about being resourceful. You've had, something that interrupted your working life, took away your retirement dreams that you had, or it made you sort of rethink, how you were going to get to retirement. So you had to, go back to your inner resources and find ways around those problems and get yourself to a point where you could be self-sufficient in retirement. So I guess that's what you're saying, isn't it? That, you've got to find ways to overcome these difficulties. So what exactly did you do, for yourself in that situation? How did you respond to that sudden loss of income at a critical time in your life, just as you were, getting ready to really start saving hard for your retirement?
Yeah. Well, we were quite lucky. We had sold a previous property for a reasonable amount of money, but we did run through all that money in the first few years because I couldn't work. My husband used to work in the business with me, so he had difficulties. So it was a double whammy, really. And but we had a bit of luck there, which gave me a chance to get going again. And so what we really did was start working for ourselves in terms of consulting, running workshops, and I was selling myself back to organisations that I had known before my brain tumour. That was very hard because the rumour had gone around that I died, for one thing. I came pretty close to it.
Oh, no.
Rumours of my death were vastly exaggerated. But the rest of them were terrified because I think they thought that if I hadn't died, I'd be mentally incapacitated, or they'd feel awkward, about that I wouldn't be able to do what I did. So I had to go back and reassure people that actually I wasn't mentally retarded and I was alive. So that was hard for a while because, I'd be ringing contacts and I'd be going in and getting work. And mainly what I did was use my past knowledge to go and work on things like executive leadership strategy with organizations, and work with brain dominance profiling for bringing people together in cultures. So I was working in culture, leadership, strategy, all things I'd done before, but this time I had to go back in and sell myself as an individual with that. And with a bit of luck, I actually got one or two big contracts that were lucky and helped us to get out of our situation. And my husband was share trading, and he actually also made some money, which gave us a bit of financial security. Not a lot, but enough to keep going. And I think the biggest thing we discovered once we got to the bottom of the Maslow scale, if you like, well, I mean, we rented for 12 years during this time because we couldn't afford a house. And this was from our 50s to our 60s, we rented. Terrible experience, terrible. Anyway, we realized once we got to the bottom of the Maslow scale and financially we were sort of able to move forward, that the most important thing underpinning everything was our health. So began a quest for avoiding the big four of aging, the cancer, the Alzheimer's, diabetes, heart trouble. All of those are age-related, and they kill most people as they get older, but they totally don't need to. So I started to get very, very involved in how do we stay alive. Not only how do we stay alive, but how do we stay vibrant and energetic. And, we didn't have any choice, luckily. We had to be energetic and vibrant and able to go out there and be self-sufficient because we just otherwise were going nowhere. But in the event, it turned out to be a really important experience of getting our health back, being self-sufficient, growing our own food, finding a place to live where we could live at a minimum cost, and all of those things. If you're retiring with more than $1 million, it's great. Oh, and most people say you need more than that to keep your lifestyle up. What we discovered is that you actually don't need all that money. It's nice if you've got it, but if you haven't, and many, many people don't when they come to retirement, my concern is that people will go, oh, I haven't got enough money to retire on. And, our experience, I believe, is that, you can be self-sufficient. You can actually develop your life so that you're safer than you would be if you just had money in the bank or money in investments, because we all know that can just disappear overnight. If you look at the situation at the moment, the world is in an incredibly unstable situation. Bank rates, interest rates are going up, which is good for people with investments, but not for people with mortgages. So, it's really hard to predict how life is going to go. It's also hard to predict if you'll get knocked out anytime soon. Tomorrow you could have a heart attack. You could have a stroke. How many of you know people who have just had a stroke with no previous signs, and then that's it? So you better be self-sufficient, in my view. And if you are lucky enough to have a lot of money, then in my sort of way of looking at things, it's really important to look at ways to contribute and give back, or use that to help other people who are struggling, because there are a lot of them out there, and they're not their own fault. It's just circumstances very often. So if I won lotto, I'd be putting a large amount of that aside to, to just help other people to get themselves sorted.
Because, we don't want to be a burden on society ourselves, do we? So I think, it's up to all of us to make sure that we are doing our best to be able to take care of ourselves, number one, that means staying healthy, doesn't it? So that we're not a burden. And also just having that resilience to find other ways of surviving financially. And I know you've learnt a lot yourself about both those things, about how to maintain your health, how to be a wise person as you grow older, how to use your wisdom, to be resourceful and to be able to take care of yourself. So I think, you're a fabulous example of that resilience, of somebody who's had a major problem occur in life, and you haven't given up. You've found ways around that problem, found ways to be self-sufficient, but more than that, you're sharing your knowledge with other people.
Yeah, I think, I think that you don't make any change in this world unless you are role modeling it. And we don't have enough role models. We don't have enough role models. And that's one of the things both of us have talked about a lot, my husband and I. And we want to be role models for other people. And I don't want people to say, oh, I couldn't do that. Just look at that. Look, I have people saying to me, oh, God, I don't know how you came through that after my year of brain crises. And when I look back at it, I go, oh, God, how did I get through that? But, I was an ordinary person, like everybody else is an ordinary person, and you just make the decision that you're going to do something positive or not. And you're quite right, Liz. I mean, the two things I think are really critical for future generations, and we have a responsibility to future generations, I believe. The two things that are really important is that we are self-sufficient, we're independent as oldies, and that means financially, that means in terms of mentally, that means in all those ways in which we're not a burden to our kids, and we're not a burden to the state. And that's really quite important, and that matters, because several years ago when I was talking about the ageing population, and I know you do this too, that the dependency ratio was looking like it was going to be about 50-50 by now. And that means there's about, for those who haven't used that, about 50% of the people who are working are keeping 50% of people who aren't working. And the people who aren't working are people who are retired, who are getting pensions and benefits, people who are on the benefit, and people who are too young to work. About 50-50. Okay. The prediction for the next 20 years is that's going to go to 70-30, and not the right way, because 30% of the population is going to be keeping 70% of us. We cannot afford, economically or socially, in my view, to have many of us who've got things to offer just sitting back and playing golf, or feeling smug that we've got enough money invested to keep us in the manner to which we're accustomed. I actually believe, like you're saying, that we have a responsibility to the younger generation, to generations to come, to actually be more self-sufficient in ourselves, health, financial management, just managing our lifestyles so that we can do that. And the wisdom thing is also important, because it's not just taking away the burden, I think, which is the self-sufficiency thing. But the second big thing that I think is really important is developing your wisdom. It's interesting, because some people think they get wisdom from getting older. Well, you do get wisdom from getting older if you develop it. But a lot of older people don't have wisdom. They're just set in their ways. They don't give back. And I think that altruism, or that ability to give back, is a key thing for us. And so for us over 60, really important in future that we develop our wisdom, and that we look at what part of this can we give back to the younger generations. Because younger generations don't have wisdom. They have smarts, they have fast thinking, they have creativity, they have all of those things your brain has when it's younger. And they have the determination, they have the energy. But when you get to our age, you have that sort of, okay, I've seen it all, but you're able to put it all together, and you're able to have a sort of wisdom that your brain only can develop when it's got a whole lot of stuff in there and it puts it together. And
And it's about sharing that wisdom with other people, isn't it? Not just
Then
keeping it for yourself.
sharing it, and knowing what's needed, not forcing it on people, but where people need it, share it. And a lot of the work I do, you know, and my husband often says, "Oh my God, you know, you're flogging yourself on this, and there's so many people just aren't interested in the message." You know, for instance, on building your brain or being healthy. And my attitude to that is, I don't care if only 1% of people want it. If those 1% can change their lives and are keen and want to do it, then each of them can change 1% and each of them can change 1%. I mean, this isn't something where you go out and fix 90% of the population. I don't believe that anymore. That's one of the things from years and years in corporate of trying to get culture change or you know, executives to change their ways and so on. You know, it does not happen through having a process or a system or an instant answer. It's cumulative. It takes time. It becomes a meme or not. And you know, that's really my attitude to. I love to give my wisdom to people who want it and to help people if they're going that direction. If not, that's fine. You know, but I'm here.
Well, Janis, thank you very much indeed for sharing your wisdom with us today, and look forward to hearing more from you. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Liz. I appreciate it.